Welcome to The Walk-In, a podcast where doors stay open and stories unfold one conversation at a time. Hosted by Christopher Michael Sean, author, poet, actor, and lifelong student of people and purpose. Here, you're more than just a listener. You're part of the room, part of the story. In every episode, someone sits down, breathes deep, and shares what drives them, what keeps them moving, and what keeps them dreaming. This is a space for dreamers, doers, and those still finding their way. So pull up a chair, pour something warm, and let's take a walk into the soul.
Okay, so interestingly enough, I contacted like a few people about like, hey, do you want to like come in and, get like a narrator script ready? Because I already had one ready. Like I don't mind narrating the intro and the outro to my episodes, but it would be cool to have different people doing it. And at first I was like, yeah, I have a buddy. His name is Michael. He's like, his voice is like, how do I describe it? It's like that deep, like Darth Vader deep almost.
Wow. Yeah.
Not as deep, but it's down there, and it's really good, and I love his voice so much. And I tell him, like, me as a voice actor, I'm jealous of his voice. I can do accents and stuff, but this guy, his normal voice sounds so good. And
So he's like baritone, mean?
yeah. Honestly, like, I might even use his intro for this episode.
Cool.
Just because, like, honest to God, like, every time that I talk to him, every time I think about him, I message him and I'm like, bro, you've got to get into voice acting, like, even just as a gig, because your voice is gold. Like,
Yeah,
but how's everything been with you? I know, like, it might sound weird, I was working at a gas station for a little bit, and then you and I just like kicked it off. We're both two ambitious entrepreneurs, but
Yeah.
how's everything been?
Oh, everything's been good. I mean, it's just been a lot of everything's busy. I feel like everything's a blur. You know what I mean? Like, I got my day job. I'm trying to like do the final revisions and edits on my book now. I got, my daughter running around like a hurricane. And then my wife wants attention too, and I feel bad because I don't have enough time or bandwidth for everything all at once. But I just try to make it all work. You know what I mean? Just like try to like get it all sorted and. Just try to do the adulting thing without having a mental breakdown. Really, that's what it comes down to.
No, exactly. No, because I was literally just thinking about this the other day. I was talking to my friend Chris last night, and he was telling me about like his dreams and stuff. Like, he has different dreams where like there's the same girl and there's the same scenario. I'm not gonna out him for like all the details, but basically. He was in the dream. There was this girl, different scenarios, and we were trying to figure out like what is his dreams trying to tell him. And I told him like, well, it could be spiritual, it could be religious, it could be psychological. But I just told him, I was like, it's at the end of the day, it's your brain's way of dealing with the situation, of processing it. And I think that we all have our own little like coping mechanism, and I think in a lot of ways the podcast is one of my ways of going, hey, I might have a lot going on, but let me sit down with someone and just talk to him. It's been really nice. I've only been doing it for like a month now, but it's been really nice. I think writing is another one. Like, even just planning these podcasts out, like, I have a whole, like, not a script, but like questions to ask, segments. It's all organized, but I never follow it. I like having it there just in case we ever need it. But, it's just a good little thing. I think adulting is difficult, regardless of your age, because you got to think, we're all living for the first time. I don't think anybody has life figured out. I don't think there is a way to have life figured out. I think the beauty of life is that we're not going to figure it out. It's just kind of going through it together and understanding that we're not supposed to do it alone. Yeah. So. Which is it's why I loved this idea of this podcast so much, was because it's saying, hey, we shouldn't be doing this dumb stuff together alone. We should be doing it together.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm full disclosure, I already hit record. That's what I always do. But if you don't want the first like little splurge of us just talking, if you don't want it in, I'll delete it. It's just so that we can ease ourselves into it. I don't want to be
Yeah, I figured you were probably gonna like do some edits and stuff afterwards, but I kind of
Yeah.
assumed you were recording from the moment you picked up anyway. So that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, no, and the thing is like obviously, I just want you to be comfortable with it because you got to think, bro. Like you're my friend first. That's the thing. You're my friend first, and
Yeah.
I'm not even making money off of this. And even if I do start making money, my friends come first. So
Yeah. Same.
if we're recording this and I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this to sit with my friend and talk with my friend. Now the goal of the podcast is, I would love to sit down with so many strangers, which I've already had a couple, want to come into the podcast. And, I got this hot sauce guy. Bro, let me tell you about this hot sauce guy. So he's working at my store. And I go up to him and I'm telling him about the podcast and I'm talking about my career and stuff. And he's like, yeah, man, I had this big breakup and I went to Ireland and now I've got this hot sauce brand. I was like, whoa, hold on. Because that is some deep lore right there. I love that. I was like, I need you on my podcast, bro. He's like, seriously?
Wait, is that Kirsten's friend, the guy that was doing the spices for the grill and stuff?
No, I don't think so. No. I
Oh.
don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I haven't really spoken to him much. Just because I do have, like you were one of my first ones on the list, and then Maggie, the last episode was, like therapy through sound. Like I've had a lot of people like lined up pretty much that wanted to do the podcast with me before I even started the podcast. So I'm
Oh,
making
wow.
my way through those numbers first. And you were like I said, you were one of the first ones before I even set up the podcast. So like I have to make my way through these guys first. Hot sauce guy is like number 12 out of 15.
Oh, wow. Cool.
You're like number 5 or 6. So I was like,
Oh, thanks, man.
I gotta get you, man.
Yeah.
So, so I didn't get the chance to really like write down everything about your books. And I want to know as much as you're willing to share, because I know that you said that you write books in your free time while you're doing your day job, while you're doing your parenting, which by the way, let me just say, as somebody who doesn't have kids, who doesn't have a wife, I envy you, because it's like, how do you have it in you? Like all of that energy to not only take care of a wife and kids and not only have this very demanding job, but also chase your career, chase your ambition. I mean,
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I just the idea of like having such a time crunch and trying to like juggle and time manage all of it is kind of daunting and kind of frustrating at times, and sometimes is a stress, what is it, a source of stress that goes on for several days at a time. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're creative like me, and you know what it is to have something that you have to do, you know what I mean? And I may not be able to get to write every day. It may be once a week, or it may be like twice a week, and in between each bout of writing, it would be really great if I could write, but I make notes about what I want to write about, and then when I finally get the time to sit down and write, then I at least have my notes so I don't have writer's block. But it's more of a compulsion, you know what I mean? Like it's like, yes, I have to put like these 5 other priorities ahead of what I want to be doing, but at the same time, like, I have to write this book because I have no choice. Like I have to write it because if I don't, it's going to bang around in my head and drive me crazy unless I get it out onto the page. So
exactly.
I'm not sure if I actually answered your question or not, but I hope that makes sense.
That's a beautiful, no, absolutely. That's literally whenever I think about the answer to that question for me, myself, I think about the same thing, because I'm trying to get into the, I would love to like have a family and have a wife, and then, I want to go back to school and I want to have a more demanding job. I do, because more demanding job, more money, and I can support wife and kids and still chase my career. So seeing where you are, it's like that's like you're in the next step. You're a couple steps ahead of me, and I'm like, okay, this is the kind of guy that I want to look up to, because you're doing exactly like what I want to do whenever, you know what I mean? So
Well, thanks, buddy.
yeah, no, I have a huge amount of respect for you, absolutely. And that could be absolutely because I grew up with two military parents who instilled like respect of your elders and you know what I mean. I act like you're old. You're
Yes.
not old. You're not old at all. Um, but you know what I mean. Like even if you're a couple years older than me, I'm supposed to be respectful. I'm supposed to honor and be mindful. You know, and
Cool.
yeah, it's the same thing with my acting. You know, like for whenever I first started. So I started way back in like high school, 2018. I was in competitive acting and I was running through stage into 42nd Street, which is a musical, and I was starring in that, and then I was going to star in what's it called? I think it's like a Shakespearean play. It's got Caliban and Trinculo. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, that
The
sounds
Tempest.
familiar.
The
Yeah,
Tempest.
yeah. Right. Yep.
I was supposed to star in that, but that one got canceled, and it was a whole thing. And then afterwards, it really felt like, and this is something I've touched base on a few times in my episodes, where it feels like if you're not making progress, you're failing. But the truth of it is, sometimes stagnation, or even lack of progress, or even steps back, is still progress. I made a whole episode about how failure is a necessary milestone on the pathway to success, and it's just true. You have to fail before you can succeed. You're not going to ride your bike, fall off your bike, and then go, you know what, this thing sucks. Like, no, you're going to get back up. You know, you don't learn to swim just like, boom, I know how to swim now. No, you have to go out there. You have to almost drown a couple times, and then you learn how to swim.
No, accurate. Yeah, I think that's completely accurate because, you know, the thing is, I saw something, you know, and I'm not the kind of person that's just like, oh my God, you know, like there's a religion in memes or anything like that. But I did see something on social media once that said, like, even if you are not doing your art at the moment, it doesn't mean that you're not an artist. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be constantly painting every minute of every day to be a painter. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you crank out a painting every 3 months and you only get to work on it like 5 days out of those 3 months, that doesn't mean that you're not an artist. It just means that, you know, you also have to like feed yourself and pay bills and whatever else. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, and the fact of the matter is, it does go into every genre, not just art, not just creative, not just, you know, this ambition with writing or acting. It goes into every walk of life. Like, if somebody's pursuing something, you don't have a time limit. Like, yes, it's not the enemy, nor is it the friend. Time is constantly moving on. And in that way, I feel like time is neutral. It's not good or bad, it's neutral. It's one of our guarantees. Like, even after we're gone, time is going to keep going. So knowing that, you can go, okay, what can I do now? What can I do for just 10 minutes today? Even just 10 minutes a day, just writing down, this is what I want. And the next day going, okay, well, this is how I can do that. And the next day going, okay. And then even if you take a few days off, even if you take a month or a year, that's fine. It's all part of the process. And every single one of us, we have our own process, our own timetable. And I really am a believer that everything happens as it should.
Yeah.
Even whenever things go wrong, I still believe that, okay, that's going wrong for a reason. You know, it's not because I'm the problem. There is a reason for it. There's a okay. So if you can, I think I said it in the last episode, that if you can find purpose in the most painful of things, if you can find purpose in the things that do suck, it makes the things that, you know, are truly meaningful, it makes them more meaningful. You know?
Yeah.
I think the exact phrase I used was, once you can name the things that matter to you, you'll be able to name the things that are holding you back. And that's exactly what it is, you know? Yeah, and that's the magic behind it. So I want to talk more about your books, because obviously, like, if my podcast ever kicks off, if it ever gets really popular, I want whoever
it will
steps
someday.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it. I want your voice to be out there, and I want people to go, hey, this guy right here, solid guy, I want to read his books. So cool. Tell me about your books.
Okay, so I have, I'm about to come out with my fourth book, and the first two and the fourth are all, three of them are time travel novels. I've kind of evolved as a writer over the last, 13 years? Because, like, my first full-length novel came out in 2012, and that was The Gearing Incident, and that was, that was essentially an adaptation of a television episode that I really liked, but adapted for historical fiction instead of science fiction, with the addition of time travel. So that is the Gearing incident. Essentially, if you were to read that, you get to a visual window into an alternate reality where the Soviets won the Cold War, and it's a time travel adventure where the main characters have to repair the timeline back to what we know and remember as the history we grew up with. Similar vein is the following book, which is World on Fire. Not a sequel to the first, but it's a time travel adventure that starts with an alternate universe where the Nazis won World War II, and so the main characters have to repair the timeline, and they're going to go back to, back in time to kind of correct, what went wrong with World War II to restore the history that we knew and grew up with. The third book that I wrote was a paranormal romance called Moonlight Becomes Her, and that is about a succubus, a modern day succubus, where I just basically got creative with some medieval folklore that I read about having to do with a succubus, which is a female demon that preys upon people sexually, and so of course it's a little bit more adult content and so on, but yeah, it was just something I sort of took off with and had fun with. And so those are my first three books. The next book that's about to come back out, or not come back, but like that's about to come out, is kind of a lot different than my previous three books in that it's a science fiction book involving time travel like the first two, but this time I'm using a representation of a dystopian future to provide my readers a red flag instead of a instruction manual on what to be careful for in the future that we're heading towards, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, it does. And I'm a history nut, so I automatically like latch on to anything to do with history, even like medieval, like World War II, Soviet Cold War, and even the future, like absolutely. And I love like the range of books, because like with me, something that I know that I need to branch off, because I've got my own little saga of books going on. So I've got Thomas James Ferguson. That's my detective novel. So it's about this Irish family who came to America, and as they go on, this kid grows up, and his father becomes a police officer, very well decorated, and kind of involved. But as the years go on, the father becomes more attached to work than anything, so it's very distant.
Yeah.
And then one day, Ferguson's waiting for his dad to come home so he can, watch a movie with him. And at this point he's like, 14 or 15, and the captain of the police department comes in to the house, like knocks on the door, comes in, and he's talking to Ferguson, giving Ferguson the keepsakes of his father, like a watch and a hat, glasses, and a set of car keys. And while this is happening, Ferguson notices like the blood is fresh on these items, and he's kind of questioning it at first, but he just tosses it off. So his name is Captain Montgomery, so he leaves. And then a little while later, the police department comes up to Ferguson and is like, "Hey, that guy was the person who killed your father. He'd been pretending to be a captain for a long time, and like da da da." So
yeah, wow.
Yeah, like he was. So basically, the original Captain Montgomery had been killed, and that guy was basically like pretending to be Montgomery to get close to Ferguson's dad. Yeah. So it's a whole scope. It gets really deep into like corruption, city corruption, and stuff like that. Ferguson tries to get away from it. He tries to stay away from the ins and outs of like, well, I don't want everyone to think that I'm just going to go avenge my father's death or whatever. But eventually he gets dragged into it. It's so good. Like even like later on he does join the police department. He does become a detective, and he finds that there's a lot of corruption, not even just with that one guy. There's a lot of corruption within the police department with, something to do with like this big mafia, this big, criminal underground sort of thing. And so Ferguson, he's basically like a sheep surrounded by wolves. He's in a police department with a bunch of corrupt cops and no allies at all. So he kind of works his way through and eventually, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but yeah, he beats the bad guy, so to speak, figures out a whole lot of stuff. There's like a billion plot twists. It's crazy. The second book is Tobias Ferguson, which is Thomas's ancestor. Now, it was believed in the first book that the Irish family, the Ferguson family, came from Ireland in that day and age, or at least, recent to that day and age. But you actually learn that there was a runaway way back in like the late 1800s, a guy named Tobias James Ferguson, and he comes from Ireland. He stows away on a ship, and he gets all the way over to America. He almost makes it to America. There's this huge ship battle. He gets stranded on an island. He basically becomes a pirate to this pirate lord, and he basically like does stuff for this guy until this guy reveals that he's he's been killing innocent people, basically just for sport at that point. And so Ferguson finds a way to the mainland. He finds a way to America, and he reports it to the law enforcement. The sheriffs go over to this island, and they're not able to find this guy. And so Ferguson runs up into the mountains. He hides up in the mountains for months, and just hides away. There's this huge bounty on him from the pirate lord, and his best friend runs into him. Her name was Hunter, like somebody that he'd become very good friends with on the island, and he's telling Hunter like, oh yeah, I can't go back, and Hunter's telling him like, I was hired to kill you, but I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to tell you to keep running, and if you see me again, you have to shoot first. And it's this whole thing. It's a really good one. It's set in like the Wild West, but it trips off of like piratey vibes, which is interesting. But yeah, that's just my second book, and then I have a couple more. But I've always been set in this Irish family, this idea of like detective crime solving. I would love to switch my genres. Like with you, like it feels like time travel, and then you're going over to medieval, and then you're going, you're able to kind of switch that gear.
Sure.
So I guess the question I have for you from one writer to another is how is it that you're able to kind of switch that gear, like that creative gear, from one genre to the next?
Well, so that's a good question, and I think that it's definitely worth talking about because it's not easy. I think a lot of authors, whether they're traditionally published or self-published right now, they have a tendency to write either books in a series of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 volumes at a time, or they do trilogies, or they do standalone books, but they all have the same theme as the other 5 or 6 that they have out, and that's fine. You know what I mean? I understand the marketability of writing one book that takes off and then writing something similar that the same audience is going to like, and I get that. Like that all makes sense. However, having said all that, there are going to be certain authors who write about all different kinds of things throughout their career, but they still retain the same readership because the people who read their books are just absolutely enthralled with their style of writing, how well they write, their ability at storytelling. And that's the kind of author that I aspire to be. I want to be the author whose works are read by people because they like the way that I tell stories, they find my stories compelling, they find my characters sympathetic. These are all things that matter to me. You know what I mean? If you want to just write stuff that you think is going to speak to a market and make cash, yes, of course. Do 7, 8, 9 books in the same genre, the same series. Great. Good for you. Happy for you. Go ahead and do it. Nothing wrong with it. No judgment there. Having said that, I'm the kind of person that I have ideas and stories come to me all the time, whether they're based in real life, whether they're inspired by other fiction, or whether they're a combination of both. Things are going to come up. I was originally when I was in my bachelor's and then my master's and then later in graduate school, I was primarily a history major, and so I read a lot of history books. And so there are all these fascinating little stories that I read about all the time that kind of like, triggered this creative spark in me. And, that's where a lot of my ideas came from. And, throughout my life being a fan of different world cultures and history and art and all that sort of thing, I draw my influences and my inspiration from a lot of different sources. And I think that sounds like something that you do as well. You and I may or may not have the same background, but it sounds like you and I both have that in common, that we draw our inspiration from different sources, and that's okay. I think that's actually, a very interesting way of going about being a creative is, taking all those things that inspire you and just using them in whatever way fits in your mind to create something that's worth reading or worth viewing or worth watching or whatever like that. Does that make sense? I hope I answered your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. That's a great answer. I think I think one of the hardest things with being, creative and ambitious in the arts is, it's hard for authentic things to kind of make waves nowadays,
Yep.
So like with this podcast, I guarantee you there are like, it's kind of like what I was talking about, like whenever we first started, like AI is really throwing itself out there. And I have a friend, great guy, nothing against him, but they want to use AI for their intro and outro, and they introduced it to me, and I was like, hey, listen, if that's what you want to do, absolutely go for it. I have nothing against it. I think that it is hard. I think it is hard to like come up with authentic things and have that fire, that drive to do
Yep.
that, because so much nowadays isn't authentic.
Yep.
We do live in a world that's like go, consume, go, fast, and I think that it's nice to like slow down, and I think that that's the beauty of the creative arts, is that it is a place where we can slow down, we can take a breath, and we can really put our minds and our inspirations out there on paper.
Yeah.
And I think anybody out there that's like, even if it's like with pottery or painting or anything, even digital art, I would love to inspire you to just stay away from AI, because your authentic fingerprint, that's what's going to last. It's going to last the test of time for sure. And it might not seem like it now because there's so much out there that's AI, but people are going to become numb to that. They are, even right now they are. The society doesn't like it. And yes, AI is going to come up in a lot of ways. Absolutely. I heard this story about there's like this AI officer thing, like RoboCop type of thing in Thailand, I think. But
Oh, really?
yeah, it's like a stationary cop. It's not like anything that could like move or anything, but it's like a stationary AI officer. Yeah, I'd read up on it. It's interesting. But AI is something that we're going to have to live alongside. But I think it is kind of attacking the arts, because, even in movies and people publishing AI written books and stuff like that. But there also is a system that is fighting against that, against, fake stuff.
Yep.
Like if you try to publish it on Kindle books, I think it automatically flags it. Even Spotify, Spotify and TikTok, you have to let them know if you're using AI. You have to. Like on TikTok, whenever I go live on TikTok, it literally says like this whole policy that they have. If you use AI and you don't let TikTok know, because TikTok is going to let the audience know, you're going to get in trouble. And think about it, TikTok is literally, what I would argue, it's the biggest platform out there right now. And so whenever somebody's scrolling through TikTok and they see that tag that says, hey, this is artificially generated, this is not real, that lets
Right.
them know, like, okay, this looks legit, but it's not.
Yep.
And the same thing with Spotify, the same thing with YouTube. I think YouTube is fighting against it too. I do think that while it is a bit disheartening that our market is getting kind of attacked, our ambitious career is under fire with AI, I do think it's a storm that's going to fade. And whenever it does fade, the authentic people, the ones that stayed true to their craft, or at least created a craft that was true. Because even if if you want to do AI, that is completely up to you, and I hope that you're successful. I pray you're successful, but I do think that there is beauty in your own fingerprint being out there, your own authentic fingerprint being out there. And I think with you, I think it's gorgeous. I think that you're writing these books and you're staying true to yourself, you're staying true to your craft, even if it's gut wrenching, even if there's no progress, even if you're in stagnation or take a few steps back, or you don't meet the goals that you set forth. Because something that I realized with progress is that oftentimes every time we reach the bar, we raise it. You know? And that's something that I've done in New York countless times. Every time that I reach the bar, I go, okay, well, all right, let's raise it. This is now the new goal. And I never take a moment to reflect and have deep self-care to go, hey, I did good. Like, this was good. So I do have a few questions here just to kind of round the set here. So what does success look like to you? What does success look like to you?
For me, success would be contributing to the knowledge and experience of human popular culture. I don't write to get rich. I write because it's what I do, and I don't have any choice because it's who I am and it's what I do. So when I actually get to a point where I can confidently let something go out there, like publishing it, my goal in doing that is that I want to contribute to the knowledge and experience of humanity. So, excuse me. So I'm not putting my novels out there because I want to be rich and famous. I'm putting my novels out there because I want to make people feel and think and experience. To illustrate the point, let me talk briefly about Star Trek: The Next Generation, for example. I love that TV show, always have, always will. And the reason why I love Star Trek: The Next Generation so much is because I would say, in my opinion, 90%, if not 100% of those television episodes compelled me to think about things that I had never previously considered. And that's why I write science fiction, because for me, science fiction is about guiding people through their own thought process, not to give them my opinion, because my opinion doesn't matter. What matters is that I can present two or more sides to a situation or a premise, and that I can lead people to think about them and guide them to their own destination on what they think is true, what they think is right, what they think is the just thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually ties into my next question, because you're talking about like what you hope readers see, and like you want them to be able to think and to question and go, I never thought of that, I never questioned that. And I do think that like having those aha moments, having those like thought-provoking lines that people have to pause and go, whoa, let me read that again. I think that that's so important. What do you hope that your kids, or even like future readers, what do you hope that they'll see when they look at your books?
That's actually a really good question that I just started thinking about recently, because my third book came out when my daughter was only months old, and now this one is going to be coming out when she's 4, and I've had all this time to think about, what kind of legacy do I want to leave? What kind of impression do I want my kids to have someday, decades from now when I'm gone and they read my stuff? What are they going to think of me, and what are they going to think of my thoughts and my creativity and my opinions? And so, yeah, that's been weighing a lot on my mind. And I think what it comes down to really is I want them to read what I've written and think about things critically and come to their own decisions. They don't necessarily have to agree with me. That doesn't bother me if they don't. But I want them to have informed decisions. If they want to have a certain opinion on something, they need to be able to back it up with why. And that's what it comes down to. I want my kids to be able to think critically and have reasons for doing what they're doing, and not just, watching social media and getting all hyped up by, crap that's out there and who knows where it came from. And, if it's from another country or if it's from here, its intent to divide our country, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, I want my kids to be able to like view this stuff, consider the source, and consider what they know to be right and true, and to be able to find their way themselves without me having to hold their hand. And like I said, they don't have to answer, they don't have to agree with what I'm saying or what they think my opinion is. What's important to me is that my kids have their own opinions and that they have reasons for their own opinions.
Exactly. You don't want them to you're not trying to create a copy paste of yourself. You're trying to help them create a version of themselves and find the version of themselves. So whenever they read your book, whenever they see your content, whenever readers look at what you're publishing, you don't want them to go, "Oh, I am this guy. This is who I am now." No, you want them to be themselves and ask thought-provoking questions and be able to answer why. Like, why do I feel this? Why do I think this? Why do I believe this? Why do I chase this? And I think that is one of the most important things, especially in our day and age where everything is fed to us, that we're able to chew it. Whatever's fed to us, we're able to chew it and go, I don't like how this tastes, and this is why. Or I do like how this tastes, and this is why. And I think it's honestly so beautiful that you're not. I do love that you're not trying to like control the narrative with your readers or anything else like that, because you're just saying, hey, this is what I'm giving to the world, do with it as you will. You're not expecting anything. You're not saying like you have to believe this or you don't have to believe this. And most of all, you're not going to dig into your own soul because someone else doesn't see it the way you want them to. And I think that is the most important, is to hold space for someone and allow them to walk into your room, take a look around, and make their own decision on how they feel with what they see.
Exactly. Yeah, because, at the end of the day, the only constant in history is change. Yeah. So what's going to happen is, my kids, or anyone else for that matter, who reads what I write in 2025, if they're reading it in 2045, well, the world has changed by then, hasn't it? And, the opinions and the thoughts that I put forth now may or may not apply 20 or 30 or 50 years from now. The other thing also is that when you have children, and a lot of people I feel like don't understand this, because I've seen a lot of people my age get to a point where they're telling their parents, like, look, I'm setting boundaries because this is how I do things. I'm the adult, this is my family, and this is what's got to happen. And what I think a lot of people don't understand is that when you have a child, when you raise a child into an adult, that's a life that's not yours to live, right? So what that means is you create life, you raise them for the moment that they're going to no longer need you, because they're eventually going to reach the point where they can live their own lives without your assistance. That's kind of the point of being a parent. A lot of people don't get that. A lot of people think that they've got to constantly guide and meddle and get in the way and be intrusive. And that's not how it's supposed to work, really. When we have kids, they're going to grow up to be adults. They may or may not agree with the way we do things. Technology, culture, society may have changed to the point where we don't do things the same way. I mean, there was a time when people used to smoke cigarettes while pregnant and thought nothing of it. But it's not 1972 anymore. We do things differently now. So the point is, one facet of science fiction or any literature that we write anyway is to tell stories. Tell stories, and you take from it whatever you take from it. And you know what? If you read my story written in 2025 and you take something differently from it in 2045 versus 2065, so be it. I've still contributed in some way to your process of becoming whoever you're becoming, because I've helped you think about something critically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry I rambled a bit, but I hope that helped a little.
No, absolutely. I think that's a strong note to end on, honestly. Just the idea that, as we move along with every choice we make, every move, every line we write in a book, It's helping others around us. You know,
Yeah.
we oftentimes we don't think about just how big of an impact we have on other people, just putting something out there. I mean, think about it. Even with this podcast, if only one person listens to this podcast and they feel different, they think differently, or they have an aha moment where they look inward and they go, okay, why am I feeling this right now? Why am I thinking this right now? Then I've contributed, you know? And I think
Yeah.
that's something that we don't talk enough about, is that you don't need a billion people reading your books or listening to your podcast to change the world. Sometimes it really is just that one person. I mean, you think about it through history, right? You think about all of the creative minds that were absolutely shunned, hated in their time.
Yeah.
But in modern day, they're loved profusely. You
Sure.
know, from painters to writers to directors and producers, all sorts of people
Yeah.
who get looked at completely different. And I think that, our work that we do now, it's going to have an impact 100 years from now.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
If you don't mind famously returning to the topic of my upcoming book for a moment, one thing I do want to add is that that's sort of the premise of my book that's coming out this fall in 2025, is the idea that a woman from 1924 whose thoughts and ideas and writings really didn't matter to anyone in her own time period are actually more profound and more helpful and more influential in the year 2137, where the time traveler who came to save her is from. So it kind of parallels with this idea that you're talking about, that like sometimes the things that we do may or may not be appreciated in the time that we do them, but later on in life, or possibly after our life, but later on in humanity's future, things can become relevant at different times for different people for different reasons.
Exactly. And honestly, I'm so excited to read your book, bro. You have no idea. Like, even
Thank
just
you.
knowing it's about that, like, I'm looking forward to it. And if I can ever find the time and the way to publish some of my books, then they can sit side by side on my bookshelf. But yeah.
Well, we're gonna stay friends, and I'm gonna help you through the process. So like every time you get to a different milestone, then you're gonna let me know if you need any help with anything, and then I'm gonna kind of guide you, because I am not going to pretend that I know everything about publishing or self-publishing or writing, but I can at least guide you with what experience I do have.
And that's what this podcast is all about. Coming together, working as a team, and understanding that the footprints we leave today will ripple through generations to come. Big love to Michael for that unforgettable intro, and thanks to Laramore for stepping in and sharing his story and wisdom with us. So keep walking, keep asking those thought-provoking questions, and keep making your mark on this world. This has been The Walk-In. I'm still your new Yoki host, and this has been Soul State, the stories we leave behind.